Hello, everyone, and welcome to Vlog Week, the week where I go through all of these vlog ideas that I have written down and release one video a day where I do them. And the first one is Lifting a Curse on My Brain, Why I Changed My Mind About Violet Evergarden. So, this isn't necessarily like a one-to-one correlation, but it's a good excuse to talk about this. I've always had a strong sense of imposter syndrome when it comes to relating to female characters because of the fact that I have always wanted to be a woman, and I don't really know what that means and was never able to quantify it, but it always felt to me like some kind of weird wish fulfillment to try and project onto a female character. Like, especially if I know the character is written by a man, then it makes me feel like this is someone's fetishization of a woman that, you know, for me to as a guy want to project onto is like misguided because it's not a real representation of, you know, of what a woman is, which in itself is a misguided idea in the first place, because that could literally mean anything. And I'm gonna have another video where I talk more about the difference between if you see me licking my fingers because I burned the shit out of it just a little while ago. I want to have a different video about the difference between wanting to be a woman versus wanting to like perform femininity, and why that distinction is important and how difficult it is to understand. But for now, I'll talk about how, you know, because of this mental block, when it came to trying to like represent myself as a character, like when I was in my teens, I would never have used a male character or male avatar to represent myself. Certainly I never have in, you know, video games. I always take every opportunity I can to be a woman, you know, just to bring happiness to myself. But like when I was younger, like for instance, my blog was heavily dedicated to Remelia Scarlet, who is a character who had like an aesthetic that I really resonated with, and still do. But you know, I have lots of characters, and I've been obsessed with Shinobu from Monogatari for a while, and I'm sort of building my own character out of all my different influences that I'm going to make into a VTuber. But for a long time, like if you asked me what characters I relate to the most, I would have deliberately limited myself to male characters just because I would feel like I don't know why I felt this way, other than that like it's like overly revealing for me to like choose to say that I relate to a female character in my own mind until coming out. So like, you know, whenever those Twitter memes would come up of like, describe yourself in 3 characters, it'd always be like Gintoki from Gintama, Madarame from Genshiken, and I don't even remember who I picked for my number 3, but like Madarame is himself just obsessed with 2D girls. Like he just kind of also wants to dissolve into an endless stream of pornography. And sort of, I haven't read Genshiken's 2nd season yet, but from what I've heard of where his arc goes, it seems like it makes sense, you know, as like another trajectory of like, if I, you know, these are characters who I'd be like if I am trying to be a guy, which I was trying to do for 28 years, and in absentia of that, like trying to be a woman, trying to be like look up to female role models or project onto female characters opens up the doors for me a lot, because of the fact that ultimately I don't think you're really supposed to project onto the male characters in most anime. Like most of them are literally nothing. They exist to facilitate the existence of the female characters. So they are either meant to exist as little as possible so that you don't have to think about them while you're trying to imagine that you're dating the girl, or, you know, they are just a excuse for you to be talking to this girl as a guy, even though you would rather just be this girl or just, again, dissolve into her own life. And, through my relationships with women that I've had, like, I've come to realize that it's similar to the way that I've treated anime and manga and everything as, again, a way to dissolve, a way to see, like, oh, I don't have to be myself. I can be in this anime, and obviously that's never been like my only engagement with anime or even my primary engagement, because I'm not a very escapist person, but that is how I always felt about cute girls doing cute things shows, which is why I've always been bad at analyzing them, because like the appeal for me is just to like self-evident. It's like I just want to live that show, I don't, it's not something that I'd have to explain. And there are elements of plenty of other things that feel that way that are more explainable, like, say, the Monogatari series. But that's more a case of, like, I can't tell how much, like, Nisio Isin and I think alike and how much I grew up reading his books and ended up thinking that way, Like, I don't know if I think he might have just broke my brain from a young age. Freeing myself from the mind trap of thinking that I couldn't relate to female characters led me directly into making that big video of all the anime characters that I relate to. And if you watched that video, you may remember that like, in the category of characters that I project onto, there were only like 3 guy characters who I was still willing to put in the category. And there were tons and tons of female characters that I immediately realized, like, the only thing that had been separating me from relating to them was that, well, that's a girl. I can't be a girl, And it's like, well, every other aspect of their personality is exactly like mine. And, there are some characters who, are written by guys or written by women. And it doesn't fucking matter because, again, putting up that wall and that barrier in the first place is the result of the imposter syndrome of me just literally telling myself, like, it's too good to be true that girls can be similar enough to you that you could consider yourself one, I guess that's the odd end of the trans spectrum I fall on. There are some people who I've seen who are like extremely effeminate but still consider themselves men, the femboy spectrum, if you will. Guys like Dimitri Monroe. I'm not even sure if 120 pounds of cave beef is doing it as a meme or not, and I think that's intentional. You're not supposed to be able to tell, but they, have already like done the estrogen and like have, their body is physically effeminate, but they're still considering themselves a guy, at least on Twitter. So, for me, I look at that and I say, I don't even want to be as effeminate as Kaif Beef or Dimitri Monroe. I'm like the kinds of women that I look up to and admire. Like, if you look through the types of characters that I've always praised and talked about on this channel, including the women that I'm attracted to, anime character women that I'm attracted to, like, are tough and kind of like masculine, and ultimately what I'm attracted to the most is, in general, is androgyny, is the breakdown of gender, the idea that there is a closeness between them, that they can perform a lot of the same roles, perhaps just because it helps me to, feel more like a woman, in spite of the fact that I am not trying to be traditionally feminine in all accounts. Like, there are exceedingly femininely considered behaviors that I do have, that I have had to, not had to, but have, well, I guess to some degree have had to, yes, because I was masking those behaviors because people found them annoying, and, finding people who could accept any behavior that I would have is, why I'm capable of coming out. But at the same time, like, I'm not trying to be like Ed from fucking Cowboy Bebop at all times, like, I have now a analytical, mature side as well, and that part of me is the part that, well, I'm kind of getting too much into what I want to talk about in my one of my other vlogs, so I'm gonna leave that there for now. But yeah, like opening up that door, and it caused me to view shows through a different lens, because I used to kind of look at it like, you know, when I see female characters in a show, then I'm either thinking like, do I want to become this character, or do I want to like date this character? You know, is this a waifu, or is this not even a waifu, but like, is this just a cute girl who I want to just stare at and see the adventures of, you know, or like somebody who, you know, reflects who I wish I was or what I wish I looked like myself, you know? And none of that grabbed me in Violet Evergarden watching it for the first time. I did not feel like, oh, I want to be like Violet, or oh, Violet's waifu or daughteru or whatever. And I didn't connect with any of the guy characters. You know, the show has a very mature approach to the way it presents its characters, so like it really does not want you to view them as like waifus or as sex objects or anything like that. Like, you're meant to engage at them as people, which is good. It is a good thing about the show. But when engaging with the characters as people, I was just like, well, these characters are kind of boring and I don't really care about them, you know? But then when I came back to the show with the idea that like I can project into Violet and try to see what her story is going to have to say about me, then I was shocked to realize how easy it was to connect with the character just by paying attention more, you know, just kind of not looking at the show in terms of, like, when I first came to it, thinking a lot about the visuals, how, you know, the weird depth of field stuff kind of bothered me. I kind of just didn't even pay attention to that when I came back to the show. I, you know, just ignored it, got used to it. It gets better as it goes along in terms of the visuals anyways. And, you know, just fixated on Violet, on, like, what is she experiencing emotionally, and is that something that I can draw from? And it was immediately apparent that, yes, it is very easily something you can draw from. And I used all of the power in my being to not use the word autism in my video. I had noted in the script, and then forgot about it, to put a "please be patient, I have autism" hat on Violet at some point in the video, but I forgot to do that. But thankfully there were autistic people in the comments saying, like, this was a great representation of my experience, and I was like, yeah, that was, like, as soon as I got that angle on the show, then I was like, oh, this is why I thought she was literally a robot. Like, I had not been paying enough attention the first time I watched the show. It was very confusing because she's called an auto-memory doll, and she has robot arms, and she acts like a robot. So I was not the only person to make this mistake, I found out through the internet, which is hilarious. But, like, you know, as soon as I knew that she was a child soldier who just, like, oh, she's lacking emotions or emotional understanding out of, you know, the way she's raised, then, oh. And then you see her develop emotional understanding through consumption, you know, having this big arc. I definitely didn't expect the show to cover so much time. Like, because of the way the first two episodes are, like, how it's so stationed in the, you know, place where she works, it leaves the impression that it's going to spend a lot more time there, be like more localized to that town. But no, she almost immediately starts traveling. Tons of time passes. She gets good at the job, becomes famous by the end of the season. So, you know, seeing that the character actually makes a ton of progress and reaches a much more interesting place in her career by, like, you know, 2/3 of the way through the show, all of that was promising and made me feel like, well, the show can only get more interesting because there are more possibilities because of the fact that it keeps expanding in that way, and, you know, getting closer and closer to some kind of bigger intrigue. But, I don't know what the plans are. I've heard that the second movie is out. I heard it's a little bit, like, bloated and, maybe it didn't need to be 2.5 hours long or however long it is that people said. I don't know. I can't judge it. I haven't seen it. I will gladly watch it once it's subtitled. I still need to watch the special, actually. I had forgotten to do that. It was just a lot easier to connect to the show when I allowed myself to connect to the character by lifting the mental curse that I had put on my mind. And, yeah, Violet Evergarden would also make a great cosplay. So, I'll consider it.